Weeks ahead of the state's March 1st primary, local election officials in Texas are sending mail-in ballots back to thousands of voters who'd turned them in, citing issues with ID requirements created by the state's controversial new voting law. In Harris County, Texas' largest county, which is home to Houston, election officials said they'd received 548 mail-in ballots as of Saturday, and had returned almost 500, nearly 38%, for correction because of an incorrect ID. That's a far higher rejection rate than is typical. Isabel Longoria, the Harris County Elections Administrator, says it's a serious problem. Mail ballots are people's votes, Longoria says. So, I'm very concerned, not just with the complexity of the process, but how that added complexity is going to increase the number of mail ballots that we have to reject. The March 1st primary that is currently underway in Texas is the first big election held in the state since Senate Bill 1 ago. Around the country, several states have cracked down on their vote-by-mail programs following the 2020 election. Texas, however, already had one of the most limited programs. Only voters who are over 65, disabled, out of town or in jail are able to cast a mail-in ballot in Texas. Despite warnings from groups representing older voters and voters with disabilities, state lawmakers included new restrictions for vote-by-mail in the law. SB 1 requires that the ID voters use when they vote by mail, whether it's a driver's license number or partial social security number, matches what's on their voter registration record. This new rule applies to both the application to vote by mail as well as the return envelope voters use to send their ballot back to election officials. This requirement has already tripped up thousands of voters applying for a mail-in ballot who didn't remember what ID they used to register, sometimes decades ago. Chris Davis, the elections administrator in Williamson County north of Austin, says he and many other local officials were nervous this problem would be even bigger as voters return their ballots. All of us county election officials are unfortunately anticipating a higher number of mail ballot and the window to fix that is much narrower. James Slattery, a senior staff attorney with the Texas Civil Rights Project, says election officials and voters face a big-time crunch when it comes to sorting out any ID issues that arise with a returned vote-by-mail ballot. Basically, if their